Today we're going to look at Genesis chapter 16 and possibly Genesis chapter 17. We'll see how far we get into it because there's a lot of material to cover. But before we start, I just want to give a warning that there will be some, sensitive material. So if you are a sensitive viewer or maybe underage, it's probably, I'm just warning you that there will be some sensitive content in this video. And obviously this is the Bible that we're reading, and the Bible is full of mass murder, genocide, rape, cruelty, depravity. So yeah, this is one thing that I've always kind of wondered about. People will always censor, you know, R-rated material and violent material, but they'll give a Bible to their kids and say, "Here, read this. It's fine." But the Bible is full of a lot of questionable things, which we will see as we go deeper into this today. So I'm going to start with Genesis 16, and I'm going to read the whole chapter here. Now Sarah, Abraham's wife, bare him no children, and she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarah said unto Abraham, Behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarah. And Sarah, Abraham's wife, took Hagar her maid, the Egyptian, after Abraham had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abraham to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived, and when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarah said unto Abraham, My wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid into thy bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judge between me and thee. But Abraham said unto Sarah, Behold, thy maid is in thine hand, do to her as it pleaseth thee. And when Sarah dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. And the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of the water in the wilderness, by the fountain of the way of Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarah's maid, whence camest thou? And whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of the mistress Sarai, my mistress Sarai. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. And he will be a wild man, his hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And she called the name of the Lord, and spake unto her, Thou God seest me, for she said, I have also here looked after him that seeth me. Wherefore the well was called Beer Lahairoi. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bare Abraham a son. And Abraham called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. And Abraham was 86 years old when Hagar bare Ishmael to Abraham. So I think that is like 46. Okay, so before I go to verse 17, let me first just deal with what we read here. And then if there's time left, I'll go into 17. Otherwise, we'll do that next in the next video. So, there's a lot of problems in just this one verse, because first of all, it says once again Abraham had a lack of faith for trusting God, and then second of all, obviously the Bible doesn't have any problem with polygamy, because there are many verses in the Bible where polygamy is justified, and just look at the story. It's like Abraham and Sarah see that they can't have kids, so Abraham's wife's like, here, sleep with the maid. So Abraham, being a righteous man in God's eyes and a faithful man, sleeps with the maid, and he's like, yeah, sleeping with the maid. And then when he sees, when the maid sees that she has a baby, that she's conceived, she obviously, doesn't feel the same way anymore. Now, surprise, anyone could have known this would have happened. But because it says here, when she conceived, she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarah said unto Abraham, my wrong be upon thee. Okay, I have given my maid into thy bosom. When she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judge between me and thee. Now, Abraham says to Sarah, you know what? It's your maid. Do with her what you want. And Sarah, it says Sarah dealt hardly with her. She fled from her face. Okay, and basically, oh, sorry, that's for later. We're still gonna get to that. Okay, so basically, it says that she fled into the wilderness, and this is the cruelest way you can deal. First of all, it was Sarah's own fault. She's the one that's like, sleep with the maid, and now this cruel act, chasing her into the wilderness, basically to die. And so this is an example of first of all cruelty in the Bible. Okay, and then it says let me just read here to find my place. Okay, so the angel has this conversation with her in the desert, and God says to her, return to thy mistress and submit thyself under her hands. So basically, God, being, the moral guy that he is, tells her, you know what, these abusive people, return to them and submit yourself to go and take more abuse, which is a total injustice. Instead of punishing Abraham and his wife for doing this messed up thing, God tells the victim to go and submit themselves to the abusers. And then it says, but God's justice is righteous and God is justified, This is continually said in the Bible. But when we look at the actions here of this God, this Jewish God, it's really appalling. And you know what kind of God makes a guy like this? It says, because they say, okay, that. Okay, anyway, I'm not gonna go into things that are obvious, but okay, so it says Abraham was 46 years old when Hagar bare Ishmael to Abraham. Okay, so I'm gonna read on here now, but the point that I wanted to make in this whole scripture is that, the thing where they say, yeah, sleep with my maid, maid gets pregnant, the maid gets chased into the wilderness to die. God tells the maid to return to the abusers. Uh, you know, this is not what I would call ethical conduct. And it's very, first of all, cruel. Second of all, it's an injustice. That's another injustice that's committed here in the Bible. But it gets worse as we read chapter 17. When Abraham was 90 years old and 9, the Lord appeared to Abraham and said unto him, I'm the Almighty God, walk before me and be thou perfect. No, but I've never read that God says to Abraham, Abraham, you were wrong to lie to Pharaoh. And Abraham, you were wrong to sleep with the maid. You should have trusted me. I don't read this in the Bible. It's God's always punishing the victims. And Abraham fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Okay, now, how absurd is this? Okay, before I make any comments, let's read the whole thing. Never shall thy name any more be called Abraham, but thy name shall be called Abraham. And for a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make the nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee in their generations forever, an everlasting covenant to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, and all the land of Canaan for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of thy covenant betwixt me and you. And he said that he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations. He that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. He that is born in the house and he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the circumcised man whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people, he that hath broken my covenant. And God said unto Abraham, As for Sarah thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarah, but Sarah shall be her name. And I will bless her and give her a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she will be a mother of nations, kings of people, and shall be of her. And Abraham fell upon his face and laughed and said in his heart, Shall a child be born unto him that's 100 years old, and Sarah that is 90 years old bear? And Abraham said unto God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him, an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee, and behold, I have blessed him, and I will make him fruitful and multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. And he left off talking with him, and God went up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the self same day as God said unto them. And Abraham was 90 years old and 9 when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. In the self same day was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael his son, and all the men of the house, born in the house, and bought with the money of the stranger were circumcised with them. Okay, first of all, I just want to speak about the absurdity of Abraham bearing a child at the age of 100 and Sarah bearing a child at the age of like 90, over 90 years old. This is completely absurd. It's never happened ever, and I mean, these people are long past childbearing age. Second of all, why? Why wait until Abraham? God makes this promise and he literally waits until Abraham is an old man. Old man, I mean, how long is Abraham still going to live to raise his son? He's not going to see his grandkids. And I mean, why wait so long? This is the thing. Then people's going to say, yeah, but it's God's time. Everything happens in God's time. No, the truth is that this is completely absurd and defies science. This is what it is. Second of all, God makes this covenant where he says, everybody has to cut off their dick skin because God likes that kind of sadistic thing. If you want to be my follower, you have to mutilate your penis, And this is the covenant. This is the covenant that he makes with Abraham, that every male has to be circumcised. And it's like everything that pleases God involves some kind of mutilation or blood, and he likes this thing. And I think that is, for me, unnecessary. Why do people have to mutilate themselves to follow this God? And it gets even more absurd because later you read in the Bible that anyone who has a mutilated penis can't go into the tabernacle. So how did the Jews go into the tabernacle in the desert? Because they all had mutilated penises. So this doesn't make sense either. That's contradiction right there. We're going to get to that later, when we're dealing with Exodus, Deuteronomy, those books. Anyway, then another thing I want to speak to you about, it says here, he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you. Okay, so the thing is, like, many years ago when I was a Christian still, I went to church and we had this Jewish pastor who claimed that he was a Jew that converted to Christianity and all kinds of bullshit like that. And he was explaining to us about the circumcision and why the babies are circumcised on the 8th day. And he said that on the 8th day, the blood flow is at its strongest, and this is why they do it. And I mean, why does this God have such an obsession with blood, mutilation? I mean, he absolutely hates anything to do with sex, right? And it's like he's got this thing about, I don't know, the sadistic streak. It's bad. And I mean, what does mutilating your penis have to do with being righteous in the eyes of God? Isn't it got to do with being a good person, helping other people? We do good things because it makes the world better, but how is mutilating your penis going to make the world better? How is it going to make you a better person? So this is completely absurd, and it's completely depraved as well. So then it gets worse because it says, if you don't mutilate your penis, you'll be an outcast. You won't be seen as one of God's people. So some fear mongering there. And it says also, he that is born in thy house or bought with money of any stranger. So even if you're not a Jew, but you're some slave of Abraham or a slave of the Jews, you have to have your penis mutilated. You've got no choice, because otherwise this God will reject your owners. And once again, another verse that says God has absolutely no problem with slavery. I mean, this God, he just loves this kind of thing, slavery. We've read it now. It's very clear since the beginning of the Bible. If you read the previous chapters that we did, he just loves slaves and slavery. And later on, when we get to the books of the law, you're going to see that God says, it's a right to have slaves. He says that Israel can take slaves of any nation. They should just not enslave each other. So, wow, if we have to follow this Bible, you can just become the most ruthless person on the earth. You can be cruel to others. You can enslave others. God has no problem with this. You don't have to be faithful to your lover. You can be polygamous. You can cheat on your wife, sleep with the maid. All of these things are acceptable in God's eyes, And then, it's another absurd thing, Abraham, which is like 100 years old, spends the entire day circumcising every single guy in his house, all of his slaves, his son, everybody. Can you just imagine what kind of a day that must have been? Mutilating everyone in your house's penis. It's like, yeah, okay, anyway. That's what I have to say about this, First of all, it's messed up. Second of all, it's absurd. So, we're starting to really see what kind of a God this God is and what kind of a man you have to be to please him. And, if you want to be... So we're starting to see that the God of the Bible, the Jewish God's idea of righteousness, and what actual righteousness is two different things. Because what is sleeping with your maid, being cruel to your maid, mutilating your penis, what does this have to do with being holy? And it says the Holy Bible. Anyway, thanks a lot for tuning in, and I will see you again in another video. If you like this material, then feel free to like and subscribe.